the perception of hunting, has changed. It's our duty now, our responsibility as hunters, to change it back. And we've spent the last few decades trying, espousing that message, preaching that message about wildlife conservation. It's fallen on deaf ears, all of our attempts. I think what we have to do is maybe appeal to the emotional side or the visceral side. We have to tell our story. We know what we are. We know how deeply we care about wildlife. It's just the people out there that are voting to get rid of hunting, they don't understand our stories. Sometimes we have to translate it to something that they understand.
My name is Ryan. I'm 38, father of 2, and I've been a chef for over 20 years. Growing up on the coast, I've always had a connection to harvesting my own food. At a young age, my grandfather exposed me to fishing, prawning, crabbing, and finding everything that ocean had to offer. Look at that bad boy. When I got into hunting, it felt very natural to me. It was an easy transition from hunting for my food in the ocean to hunting my food on land. I love it in here, it's awesome, hey? When I'm in the forest, I see food all around me, from mushrooms to fiddleheads to a deer. Hunting is not just about finding an animal. It's about the whole experience, being outside and searching for our food. It's so easy to go to the grocery store to buy a steak, or even vegetables for that matter. Many people now are so disconnected from their food that they don't even associate that steak with the animal that it came from. Between the monocrops that stretch for miles and the huge cattle ranges, every time we purchase these products, we are impacting wildlife and natural habitat. When I choose to take an animal's life to feed my family, it is not something I take lightly, but I am confident that with all the preparation and planning that I do, that this is the most ethical way to harvest an animal. Between predators, harsh winters, and the lack of food, the way that most animals meet their end in nature is much less humane than a quick kill from an ethical hunter. It's important to me that we take home every part of the animal that we can. Whether it's antlers, horns, or hide, these are memories to share with our family and friends.
That's Mummy's deer.
But the real trophy of the hunt is the whole experience.
Mummy's first whitetail.
I'm proud to be a hunter, and I always will be.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, it's Kyle Stelter, past president of the Wild Sheep Society BC. Welcome to episode number 7, where talk is sheep. And tonight we're talking One Campfire. So pretty stoked about this one. One Campfire has been on our books. We've been promoting this program for almost 3 years now. And something that I'm super passionate about. Steve, you're super passionate about it. And tonight's awesome because we got Jonathan Proctor on the call on the Zoom tonight. And Jonathan is the chair of the One Campfire Hunter Heritage Committee for the Wild Sheep Society BC. So welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you.
So I guess before we jump into things, how's everyone doing? Steve, is it still snowing up there? Are you killing any moose yet, or what's going on?
No, it's been rainy. We've got
no snow left up here, and temperatures have taken a swing back up to normal fall levels. But give it 2 weeks, and we'll have snow on the ground as per normal.
Yeah, no doubt. And how's the East Kootenays? What's going on over there, Jonathan? Did you kill it?
Well, I'm actually in the West Kootenays, but yeah, it's wet. We're getting rain every day, and it's cool. We did have that cold snap and had some pretty good snow, but that's mostly melted, other than at higher elevation. So, yeah, it's winter's coming. There's no doubt.
We should, while we're talking cold, we should give a shout out to Joe Humphreys, who's probably dealing with minus 30 with the wind, I hear. So better you than me, buddy.
Where's that at?
Up north in the territories there.
Oh yeah, winter comes early up there.
Yeah, it's cold. So yeah, fantastic. So what's going on with you, Jonathan? Did you get out hunting this fall? I think you had a goat tag or something, right?
Yeah, I did. I've done a lot of hunting this fall. I took a week off for archery elk, and we hunted hard. We had really warm weather though, so that made it awfully challenging. Although we did call in a couple really nice bulls, didn't get anything on the ground. And then I did a little rifle hunting for elk, and that was fairly unproductive. I called in a 5-point. Of course, it's 6 points only here, so that was exciting. But freezer's still empty. And yeah, I did a goat hunt. We took 6 days off for goat hunting, but all but a day and a half, we had nothing but fog and rain. So we had challenging conditions. Although we did get up, spend a night up on the mountain, which was a real adventure. Coming down too. It was about 6 hours of steep, and about 3 hours of it was over blowdown. That it was actually kind of unbelievable. Some of the blowdown was probably 36 inches around, like just or diameter. It was just unbelievable. Because West Kootenays is an interior rainforest, and we get some big trees. It was quite an adventure, but no goat down, but a memorable trip.
What about you, Kyle? How's the weather where you're at?
Yeah, so same. I had a LEH goat put in region 3, and me and my buddy went out for only had 5 days. It was pretty short, which obviously you guys all know that doesn't give you a lot of time, and we just got hammered with the weather. There was a coastal storm coming in. We knew it was going to be bad, but you never know in the mountains, right? We looked at the forecast, and it's probably going to be ugly, but had the 5 days, and like they say, you're never going to kill anything sitting at home, right? So threw the pack on day 1. We were up kind of through the pass at 2:00 in the afternoon, and the worst wind and one of the most intense storms I've ever seen when I was out hunting. Literally got blown off the mountain, and spent the night in the tent. It was funny. I'm laying in the tent. We got in the tent at 2:30 in the afternoon because it was literally just straight rain and wind. And we're laying in the tent, and 12 hours later, 2 in the morning, I get a Kyle, and I'm like, oh, like was a grizzly bear? What's going on? I think the tent's collapsed. And I'm like, what? And I turned my face, and the tent is literally. So we got a Killenberg, obviously a great product. Wasn't the tent's fault. There was just heavy snow, and obviously it was melting, but there was over 6 inches playing around on the ground while we were there. So obviously a lot more than that melted. So we got up in the morning, looked at the inReach, and they were calling heavy snow for 2 days. So anyway, back out over the top, and again, just super treacherous and crazy, but super fun too, right? So pushing the limits of what I was comfortable with. And we did see some goats, but they lived to fight another day, and we got our butts handed to us, kicked off the mountain. So yeah, pretty cool. So fun.
Yeah, it's interesting how so many trips where you don't actually harvest anything can be your most memorable.
That's what it's all about, right?
Adventures. How about you, Steve? You've been out a bit, I guess, eh?
I did a week's excursion northwest of town here with some good buddies, and we managed to get on a bunch of bears. No moose were seen. Well, nothing with antlers. Tons of lynx were seen, bunch of predator sign, great habitat, and just overall a great time. But just a single bear down for me.
Cool. That's a good fall. Yeah, definitely got some meat in the freezer. And I guess you'll probably do some predator stuff this winter, right?
What's that?
You'll probably do some predator stuff this winter.
Oh, yeah. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, lynx is on the agenda. So that's always a fun hunt for me.
Cool. Right. So one campfire. Jonathan, you're the chair. Let's just hear a little bit about, I know some of even our own members don't know exactly what one campfire is, and we hear the term hunter heritage. How does that all fit in, and what does that mean, and what's one campfire a little bit about? If you just talk a little bit about it, Steve, jump in. Just let's give our listeners an overview of what one campfire is all about.
Yeah, well, Kyle, basically the concept of one campfire started about 3 years ago, and it started after the NDP government banned the grizzly hunt. That was really the wake up call for hunters, and as you well know, and we realized that our heritage of hunting in the province was under attack, and I think we'd known that, but we hadn't actually seen anything as dramatic as a whole species being taken away from wildlife management in the way that grizzlies were. And we realized that we were allowing anti-hunting organizations to control the narrative of who hunters are, why we hunt, the foundations of wildlife management in across North America. And we decided it was time to try to control that narrative ourselves as much as we can. So it started out as Hunter Heritage, the committee, and from that it basically morphed into one campfire. And basically, one campfire, the concept around one campfire is basically to show the relevance of hunting in modern society, and show that it is important today, and that the motivations for hunting often fall outside of what many non-hunters think. And we're just trying to communicate, tell our story, talk about who we are, why we hunt, and show the diversity of hunters that are out there. I think there's a stereotype that a lot of people hold regarding who hunters are, and that stereotype is often wrong. And we really want to show that, and just basically tell our side of the story, and communicate with the non-hunting public in a way that's going to be productive, and allow them to feel comfortable and be able to exchange ideas, ask questions, that sort of thing. And that's really what this endeavor is about.
And that's exactly it, JP. It was created to show that we have more in common with a non-hunter than we don't. We all love the outdoors. We all want to see sustainable wildlife on the landscape. We love foraging. We love true free-range organic food. We love hiking. We love jet boating. We love fishing. We love photography. There's just, we're telling the story that there's so much more than the perceived trigger pull. It's a whole journey, and we're trying to tell that story to get a conversation going. Joe, it's like a two-way street.
Yeah, and I think for me, sorry, Colin, you're about to say something. I think for me too, when I was approached originally about 3 years ago as to whether I wanted to be involved, with Hunter Heritage at the time, there was a couple reasons I wanted to. One was hunting is important to me, and I find that a lot of my connection to the land and my knowledge of the land and animals comes from my experiences hunting. And I wouldn't be the same person that I am if I wasn't a hunter. There's no question about that. But the other thing is, and I think this is the part that in some ways is maybe more important to me as an individual, is that when you look at the history of wildlife management across North America, and you study it in any depth at all, you soon realize that wildlife is thriving across North America in most jurisdictions. And the reason it's thriving is because of hunters, not in spite of hunters. And my fear is if hunting goes away, if hunting suddenly, becomes something that we're not unable to do, the passion of conservation of wildlife, I fear will disappear. And I think, I think hunting and maintaining our hunting heritage is more than just allowing us to continue to do something that we enjoy, that puts food on the table and connects us to the land. It also creates millions of passionate people that care about wildlife, and they spend their money, they volunteer their time, they join organizations that are doing a lot of good in wildlife conservation. And I think if hunting went away, we'd lose just a tremendous amount of that. And I think that's a big concern in my
Absolutely. Opinion. In BC alone, I think the last number 5 years ago that hunters and anglers and outdoor recreationalists donate over 300,000 volunteer hours a year
Yeah.
to projects, and it was something like $320 million goes into local economies just from hunting in BC alone. And since the late 1930s in the States, the Pittman-Robertson Act, tax that goes on to outdoor goods there is injected over $1 billion into fish and wildlife and habitat. And that's because hunters care, and we want to give back.
Yeah, and you even see that, like even with the Wild Sheep Society BC, I'm always in awe of the people that donate and volunteer so much, their time, their money. You guys are, examples of that, and that's inspiring. And I think when I look at the hunting community and the work that's been done for the conservation of wildlife and all wildlife, I mean, we might have a certain species that we, say the Wild Sheep Foundation, for example, or Wild Sheep Society BC, our primary species are sheep species that we're directly, trying to promote the conservation of. But there's so many other species that benefit from those efforts. And, I feel humbled when I see the kind of work that these organizations are doing. And the reality is the men and women that are doing the work are almost always hunters.
That's right.
So,
Just taking point. Sorry, I'll finish up here with the Wild Sheep Society, the Granby project that we just completed, another purchase of. Yes, it holds sheep, but there's SARA listed animals in there that we're getting pictures of now. Badger, got a picture of a badger in there, which is a critically endangered animal in BC. I think there's last count was less than 300. And we bought it on a small section of land that we were helping protect. There's birds and there's snakes and there's deer. It's so much more than sheep, and it's because, as JP said, we truly care, that we want to get back and make a difference.
So on that note, so we're talking about species specific in the Wild Sheep Society of BC. Now, you referenced one campfire and hunter heritage evolving from the ban of the grizzly bear hunt. So almost a species identity crisis there for us. So I think the important part to note with that is that, the decision to ban the grizzly bear hunt wasn't a conservation decision. It wasn't a science-based management decision. It was an emotional decision, right? And that's where we as an organization were, it scared the heck out of us, because the bedrock of what we do as hunters has always been science-based wildlife management. Regional biologists are driving everything in the province, right? That's what they do. The society works with these entities and we provide funding for them and support, but it's always based on science-based wildlife management. Now here we have the polls and emotion dictating policy around wildlife management in the province, and that scared the heck out of us. And it was interesting when that happened. It was December 19th, 2017, that decision was made. And we knew that something was coming. We kind of thought it was going to be had to retain the meat. It had to be a sustenance type hunt. But it really caught us off guard that they, because the government had campaigned on the fact that they weren't actually going to ban the grizzly bear hunt, right? So that was one of the things that scared us. So we asked our members, what do you think? Actually, I wrote an op-ed called "Shifting Focus Is It Time?" And we shared it with our membership, and it was sort of asking our membership, do we want to get involved with this fight? Yes, it's grizzly bears, but is sheep next, or what species is next? And if it's emotional, is this the way we want the province to be run with wildlife management? And the feedback from that was resounding. We got dozens of emails back. Very rarely do we put anything out that's emotive. There is some things, but that one was huge. It was the most emotive issue we've seen. And from there, we knew as an organization that we had to do something, and our board supported it. So I think that's important to note, that even though grizzly bear precipitated this, there's nothing stopping the next species going, and we know that it's happening with wolves are on the chopping block, black bears, predators at the low-hanging fruit right now. But it's just going to be one after the other if we don't sort of change that narrative, right? So.
Well, I think that you exactly nailed it, Kyle. I think, when the BC government banned grizzly bear hunting, that was a significant departure from the principles of the North American wildlife model of wildlife management, right? That North America has been managing wildlife under for decades. That came into formal use in the 80s, I believe. But I mean, it had basically been going on that way for a long time, where science was the tool that we were using to make wildlife management decisions. And regardless of what species it was, it just happened to be grizzlies. The worrisome part about that is that the government was indicating its willingness to abandon science and sound wildlife management policy in favor of populism and in the management of wildlife. And that should be concerning to anybody, regardless whether you're a hunter or not. Especially considering how well that model has worked across North America. I mean, it's brought virtually every species, large mammal, megafaunal species in North America is far more abundant than it was a century ago. In fact, there's very few that aren't. And that's because of that model and the way that model has been discharged over the last several decades. And departing from that takes us into territory that we don't know where that goes. We don't know how that even works, because when you start, if you think about the wildlife managers in the province, you want them to have a full quiver of tools to manage wildlife, and you start pulling the arrows out of the quiver, you really limit the types of management decisions they can make. And yeah, so the ramifications of banning the grizzly bear hunt based on populism, had the potential to be very massive and detrimental to wildlife management.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's just circle back to the campaign itself. So One Campfire is an initiative. Let's talk a little bit about partners, how it's funded, and what's been done. So let's start off with that low-hanging fruit. Who we working with, and where's the money coming from for this?
Well, I mean, basically the money that we're getting primarily is from donations, fundraising, raffles, and our partnership with the Wild Sheep Foundation. The Wild Sheep Foundation's been a great supporter. In fact, the One Campfire Committee is now under the umbrella of the Wild Sheep Foundation. But yeah, I mean, basically we're relying on, for the most part, fundraising activities and, donations of goods that can be raffled and auctioned off, that sort of thing. Just the typical grassroots, fundraising that most conservation organizations rely on, I think has been our primary source. And you guys can expand on that.
Well, it's definitely being paid for by hunters, right? So
Right.
There's no question about that. This is a campaign funded by the hunting community. It's coming internally from our own individuals, and there's been tons of support. Obviously, the Wild Sheep Foundation is our partner on the One Campfire initiative. It's their campaign as well, and they've been very generous in supporting us. And we've definitely held our own. Our members have stepped up big time. We've got a ton of donations, which has been really important. And we've seen a lot of donations early on. It's not quite as prolific now that we're up and going, but we also haven't been soliciting that stuff either, right?
Yeah.
So, our members have been very generous, and then quite often we'll have raffles, or we'll have items that are up for auction where the proceeds are going to One Campfire, which we communicate with our members as well. So. And then there's been a ton of support throughout the BC hunting community, right? Guide outfitters, residents, fish and game clubs. So a ton of support from different entities there, from big clubs to smaller clubs. It's been fantastic. Been very, very generous. So, we've seen a strong support for it, and which tells us something, right? If there's money there to support it, people want it, right? So, obviously we're always trying to find new fundraising initiatives to make things happen, and it's been challenging with the current state of affairs with COVID and all that sort of stuff, the current pandemic. But I think we've held our own and done very well, and tons of support in the industry, which has been fantastic. So
yeah, COVID's definitely put a damper on some of that. There's no doubt, but I think especially the rod and gun clubs and the fish and game clubs throughout the province. I think once they learn about what we're doing and most of them have done what they can, and even despite how difficult things are now with COVID, and again we have to applaud these organizations for the for the contributions they're making. But yeah, I would say exactly the same thing as you, Kyle. It's been the hunters and the hunting organizations have been stepping up to the plate and supporting One Campfire.
Well, last year we had a number of great donations. And we just actually got word 2 days ago that Spetzizi River Outfitters is stepping up again with a moose hunt, which will be sold down in Reno. through the sheep show this year. So fantastic donation. That's going to go a long way to funding our initiatives. And this year, Bonnie's Sports Chalet at Alaska, they've stepped up big time, and they're going to basically underwrite a raffle that we're going to do through the Wild Sheep Foundation at Sheep Show as well. And we're expecting that will do really well. That Barney's Sheep Camp has always been very popular, and this is going to be kind of a modified sheep camp. So great funding support there from those two organizations. But it's not exclusively those two. There's been a number of organizations and companies and obviously our members that have stepped up. So let's move on now. Let's talk about the campaign itself. So one thing that I always get, people say, well, are we making a difference? Are we making a difference? Are we just hunters talking to hunters? And that's been one of the criticisms, like, well, I never see the One Campfire campaign. And our argument is, well, you're not our target audience, right? If you're a hunter, we're not trying to put this in front of you. But are we making a difference? And I know, Steve, you do a lot of the social media management. Maybe you want to talk about some of the numbers. Do you feel like we're making a difference in the world? Can you talk about some KPIs or anything like that?
Sure. Absolutely. To be blunt, we are making a difference. Our reach and our follows keep trending upwards. And with our recent photo contest, over half of the people that submitted didn't identify themselves as hunters. We have an opportunity for people to tell us what they identify as. Do they identify as an outdoor enthusiast, a hunter, an angler, a photographer? And it's pretty much a 50-50 split. We are reaching a lot of our key demographics, which, as Kyle stated, are outside of the hunting world. Multiple shares we get are in hiking groups. Our biggest engagement seems to be in the wild edibles and the cooking style stuff in outdoor groups as well. So we don't have an overly in your face hunting message, but we do kind of allude to it. Talk about being outdoors and sustainability off the land, and kind of giving people the little appetizer to come check us out. Lots of messages will come in and say, hey, I'm not a hunter, but I'm curious about it. I love what you're doing. Your messaging is great. So some of the numbers we can talk about is we did a soft launch in Reno at February 2019, and then we went live in April of 2019. So between April 2019 to July 1st, 2020, we were kind of hoping we'd hit 2 million people in our reach, and we had over 2.7 million that we reached in there. So, and that just continues to trend upwards. So it shows that we're reaching. People are liking, they're sharing, and they're interacting. Another really cool thing we put out there, we've only got 7 videos, and our longest is 7 minutes in length. So I did some numbers the other day. We've been live for 631 days as of November 1st. And in that time, just those 7 videos, we have over 2,133 hours of viewership. It works out to 89 straight days of video views. That's over 128,000 minutes viewed. So our numbers, just because people aren't liking or commenting, people are paying attention. And we know that, like I said, that's outside of the hunting world, because we don't share this much in hunting groups. It's getting shared outside of those ones. So I do think we are making a difference, because we're not getting the hate. We're not getting the trolls. We're not getting the people saying you're murderers, you're killers. That traditional hunting style posts, staying tasteful. We're staying away from the grip and grins, and we're showing the positives of the messaging we're trying to get out there.
That's interesting too, because if the anti-hunting community is going to target anyone, you'd think they'd be targeting an advocacy group and a hunting advocacy group, right? So the fact that we've kind of held our own, and that's a testament to our social media team on the way they've handled it too. We do get some crap in there once in a while, and it's usually an opportunity for dialogue. It's not even a click, ban, delete. It's a dialogue, and you don't always change the hearts and minds of everybody, but I think you are changing the hearts and minds with what we're doing on the social media side, for sure.
Well, case in point, we got one that Carla Brower. She's a former vegan that is now a hunter. We're not saying we changed her mind, but she has engaged with us pretty heavily. She's a big supporter of us, and she does share our messaging. So clearly we're not overtly in people's face, but we've got former vegans that are interacting and supporting. So we're doing that right.
Fantastic. It's interesting. Oh, sorry, JP, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Stephen, you've done a fantastic job managing the social media, and there, we have some other fairly big influencers in the social media world that Steve's developing great relationships with, and they've got, tens of thousands of followers. So, we are getting one campfire in front of, really hundreds of thousands of people. And, the vast majority would not be hunters. They would be our target demographic. There's no doubt.
Yeah, totally.
And,
we're getting noticed by like Deer Meat for Dinner, who's what?
Yeah, exactly.
3 million viewers. He's not messaging directly, but he has commented, liked, and his followers are noticing. And any of his YouTube videos, I'd say 90% of them are not hunters and fishers or anglers.
Oh, yeah.
They are just wanting to see that sort of lifestyle. So
Well,
we are making a difference.
That's the thing with I've been paying attention to these successful YouTubers, that people that have these YouTube channels that are related to hunting and fishing. And when you read the comments after they're, below the channel, it's obvious that the vast majority of them do not hunt or fish. A lot of them live in Spain, and, they say, well, I wish I could do that. They're intrigued by it. And just like people in British Columbia, people long for that connection, and I think that, people try to find that connection in a variety of ways. And, but there's definitely something that people want, that they want to connect to the land around them in a way that maybe they haven't before. And you really see that, in some of these YouTube channels and some of the comments you read after. You can tell there's a real hunger for that. And I think that's one thing you've done really well, Steve, is you've provided the kind of content that is really appealing to people that they just want to explore that. But going back to the photo contest, interestingly, Steve shared a couple of people from Nelson that submitted photos, and I happen to know both of them, and as patients, and neither of them are hunters. Both of them, they're not, So that's telling. The two people from Nelson that submitted photos, neither hunt, So I think we are getting people to visit our website and interact with us, that that demographic that we want.
Well, it's interesting, Steve. You mentioned the, how much time our videos have been watched, how many hours. What was that, 800 hours or something like that? It was whatever the number was. And I thought that was that's a pretty compelling stat too, because it's one thing for somebody to visit your site, you get your one click, or you get your like, or you get your your impression. But for people to sit and watch through that, and truth is our material's not really hunter centric. It's not really designed for consumption by the three of us. We probably wouldn't typically go and watch these videos over and over. It's kind of targeted at the non-hunter, right? So it's interesting that we're getting that much traction through these videos. And the people, I remember with the support of one of our marketing partners, they'd said that the time on our site was phenomenal compared to other sites. It was through the roof compared, and I don't remember the number they had, but compared to other sites, it was much higher than other websites they'd seen traditionally. So I thought that was pretty compelling. And the other stat they shared with us is, this was early on in the campaign, but they showed the number of unique visits to our content on social media. And I think they said that the number had 8% of British Columbians seeing our content. And that was like 6 months into our campaign. So pretty phenomenal to get that kind of traction and that kind of support. And obviously 8% of BC, there's not 8% of us are hunters, right? So is that right? 8% of 4 million or whatever the number is. Anyway, regardless, it's fantastic. The outreach was really fantastic. Those numbers were very compelling. So
yeah, first 120 days, people manually clicked play 1.6 million times. And over 140,000 of those, the videos were watched to 50%. 80,000 of those, they were watched 100%. So that's insane. That's 1.6% of BC's population watched our videos to completion. And
I have to say, just a shout out to Monashi Media and Filter Studios. Adam Yonke was kind of the spearheaded that project, and those first videos were, just so compelling. They were so well done, and it's no surprise to me that they resonated so well. It was just such a high quality for sure. So shout out to our partners on supporting us on that, and Adam for getting that off the ground for us for sure. So okay, we talked a little bit about where we've been, some successes. What can we expect from One Campfire? Where are we headed? What's new? What's on the horizon? Don't want to give all our trade secrets away, but what do we got in the pipe?
Well, I'll speak to this first, and then Steve can take off with it. But there's a few things. We did launch on September 1st a campaign we call iHunt, which is a campaign that's designed to directly challenge the stereotypes people might have about hunters. We're trying to showcase, non-traditional hunters or hunters that would not fall into that normal sort of white male stereotype. So, female hunters, hunters, different ethnicities, that sort of thing. So that has been launched, but we're developing a page on our website that's going to be dedicated to iHunt, and it'll have the different people that have contributed their images and their story that you'll be able to visit, and there'll be some sentences on why they hunt, why they've made those decisions, and how they've come to join the hunting world. And once we have that web page up on our website, we're going to expand that iHunt program and get our iHunt ads into, I think a lot of publications in the Lower Mainland, the type of publications that, non-hunters would be reading Narwhal and a few others. But we want to expand that and maybe even get some images on transit, especially once COVID is over and we get the high volumes of people traveling transit, and downtown Vancouver, maybe get a big iHunt poster down there where people can see it, that sort of thing. Just really trying to directly challenge people's stereotypes. That's one thing we're developing. Steve and I are going to be writing a couple of articles to submit for publications as well. And again, that might be a mix of publications in hunting type magazines and non-hunting publications as well, because we do need to communicate with our hunting base as well, right? We need to have them in the loop. And yeah, though, as far as the social media side goes, we're going to be expanding our efforts, with our influencers. Steve can take off from here. Basically, he can talk about some of the stuff he's been doing, establishing these relationships, and we're going to continue on with that. We might look at even doing I'll let Steve talk about this one, a potential video, sort of a catch, clean, cook video as well, with a fairly significant influencer. Did you want to take off on that one, Steve?
Sure. Yeah, without giving away too many trade secrets.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to name names or not, but you can. Yeah, this is going to be probably fairly significant when it comes to pass. It
is. Developed some great relationships with some big name influencers out of the United States so far. Just from the way our messaging is hitting people, when you talk about a target demographic, would you ever have expected us to be interacting with a WWE wrestler? That's somebody who interacts with us now. He's a new hunter, and it's totally outside of what we ever expected. So there's big potential there. We're looking towards catch, clean, cooks at the advice of these influencers. So there's some big potential coming down. We do have a lot of new content that's being storyboarded right now. We're script writing. We're kind of timelining out some ideas for the future. As we said, we're not going to give away too many trade secrets, but we do have. We did mention, or JP mentioned, transit down in Vancouver. And we do have actually 2 buses running around down there with One Campfire on the back end of them. So we were kind of hoping to get them into SkyTrain stations in high traffic locations. However, due to COVID, the ridership is something at 10% of what it once was. So the return on investment really wasn't there. So we have focused our efforts into other things as of now, and we're talking about the website development, getting more content on there. We got some really cool things that I'm excited to be working with our web guys on that are being programmed as we speak. not giving away too much, but it's exciting times for us in the year ahead, and I'm so stoked to be working with it.
I guess we could probably talk about our upcoming web store. We're going to be developing a web store as well that's going to be on our website. And it's actually going to be a pretty nice store. It'll, people to buy different swag, t-shirts, hats, hoodies, things like that. And, with a variety of different placements of One Campfire's logo and probably different couple logos as well. So, that's going to be fairly exciting to have that on there.
So some good slogans we got coming out. And
yeah, again, until those things are totally complete, we kind of want to keep the specifics under wraps. We've got some ideas there that I think are going to be very popular.
Yeah.
So that'll be good. And one of the things Steve and I've talked about, and I talked to you about a little bit, Kyle, is we're going to be looking at developing a network of One Campfire ambassadors that, will have multiple ambassadors throughout the province who can basically set up meetings with the MLAs throughout the province and just talk about some of the concerns that we have, and concerns of hunters in general, and just basically advocate for our hunting heritage to some of the policy and lawmakers, and just because I feel like they do get lobbied by the anti-hunting organizations fairly heavily at times, and I think it's about time we had a network of articulate, well-spoken individuals just to tell our side of things and communicate maybe the other side of things that they don't normally hear. So that's in the works as well. That's in its infancy, but we're hoping to have that network established of One Campfire ambassadors, hopefully within the next 6 months, because I think it'd be nice to get those people in place and get those meetings lined up within the first year of this new NDP government.
Yeah, it's not only the hearts and minds we got to change of the non-hunters. It's the hearts and minds of the ones that hold the ultimate power, right?
Yeah, because I mean, if you're an MLA in downtown Vancouver and the only person who meets with you is somebody who wants to see all predator hunting banned, and you don't hear from anybody else, and you know nothing about it, I mean, what conclusions are you going to draw, right? I mean, I think we just need to be a little more proactive politically, and I think One Campfire could be a way we can do that. So that's another fairly significant plan we've started.
Sounds good, Jonathan. So we've got this program. We've been up and going 3 years, give or take. Are we done our job? Are we good? Can we dust off our gloves, go back to bed and call it a day? Or is this something that's sticking around? Is this going to be a flash in the pan? Where do you guys see this, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we're just getting started myself. I think, we're just getting the kind of traction I think we want in the last few months. And I think, there's a lot of things that we can do yet. Aside from getting involved politically, I mean, most people in BC still have very little knowledge of the relevancy of hunting in modern society. I mean, most people, this is not something they think about, right? So we still have a lot of work to try to, I think, change the story, change the narrative to basically to tell the truth. I mean, we have to be, I think, somewhat aggressive in that, and I think we've been doing that. But moving forward, we're also going to be relying on some data and research that a company called BeThink is doing for us. I know this may be a question you were going to ask, Kyle, but they're basically an outfit that looks at your problem, looks at your marketing issue, and analyzes data and tries to determine the best way to communicate what you want to communicate. And it's a science-based approach. So the results of their research, haven't been made available to us yet. That's still ongoing, but that's also going to help us, in the mid to long term, strategize how we're going to continue on in an effective way. So I'm excited about that. I think hopefully we'll get some really good pearls out of that research, and I think that'll really help us move forward.
Okay, good stuff. So what can our members, our supporters, what can they do? They're on the sidelines. They hear about One Campfire. We've definitely had some generous support. What do we need our membership to do, and what do we want to see from them, and what do we need support to carry out our objectives to the One Campfire initiative?
Well, I mean, I think there's different levels of support. I mean, the most obvious one is financial support. Anybody that's able to, to donate, something towards the One Campfire campaign, that's going to be appreciated. There's no question about that. Um, the other thing I think I'd really like to see hunters do, and some of them have been doing it, is just help us to expand our messaging. Because if you happen to be a hunter that encounters One Campfire content, particularly on social media, because I mean social media is just the world that we live in now. If the average hunter could share our content, like our content, that's going to help us a lot. That's going to get that material in front of a lot more people. So, I mean, that's a very easy thing to do. Is just
like, share, interact, leave a
totally.
comment. Tell somebody who sees it on your wall. What's that? Well, this is what this is. Oh, get that conversation going. As we've been talking about since the beginning of this, we need to normalize it. We don't. When I was a kid, it wasn't uncommon to see a truck driving down the street with a deer strapped to the hood or whatever, and pull into a gas station. Everybody comes up, high fives, asks the conversation. That doesn't happen anymore. So we need to kind of put that conversation in people's face in a way that they can relate to, in a way that they can understand. Don't talk about, oh, how awesome it was when you watched the animal drop, because that's not what it's about. We're telling a story of what gets us there, and the most successful hunts are the ones where nothing is killed. The ones I remember are the ones like Kyle mentioned at the beginning, where the tent collapses on you, and that's a story your kids will be telling. It's never about the biggest, baddest animal you got. It's always those little nuggets of wisdom that you take away from just being in the backcountry, and that's what we're trying to share out there. So we need you to help tell that story as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Steve. I think dovetailing onto that is, for the hunters that might be watching this, one thing that we need to be sentient of as hunters is the way we portray ourselves. And I think there's been some content on social media that hunters have put up there that's, appalling. And if you were a non-hunter viewing this content, your impression of hunting is not going to be positive. And I think when hunters are putting stuff on social media, and I encourage hunters to do so, I think, we shouldn't be hiding. We should be visible. But, just, think about what you're putting on there and really ask yourself, is this the best way to tell the story? Is this telling the story to, and I think given that social media by and large is consumed by, 96% of the people consuming it don't hunt, you can assume that there's going to be a lot of people who don't hunt that see your content. And, I think hunters should try to, at least endeavor to tell a story that would resonate with non-hunters. The whole story. Because if you just show the kill and, the yahoos and stuff like that, we get it. We're hunters. We know what had to go in, was put into that effort before that point. But non-hunters don't necessarily understand that. And I think we do need to do a better job as individuals on social media, portraying ourselves in a way that tells the story better.
Yeah, be an ambassador for hunting.
Yeah. And actually, the other point I'll make is, this reminding me, we're actually, Rebecca Peters and I generated a document that has been designed to be consumed by new hunters. And it basically discusses, a little bit of the history of hunting and, that sort of thing, but also talks about interacting on social media, things like that. And, we're going to try to get that in the hands of all new hunters in BC and probably beyond that. We still haven't decided the format of that, whether that's going to be written or possibly video. There might be an opportunity to turn this into something, we can have some video of. So, we're actively, trying to help hunters, especially new hunters, navigate the world of social media and represent hunting in the most positive light possible.
Steve, you used a great word there, ambassadors. And I think that, we all have to take a personal responsibility, and you guys just talked about that, but I think it goes beyond social media. I think it goes to your next door neighbor, having a dialogue with them, the people down the street, and developing these relationships and talking about what we do about hunting and having them understand that. And if every single of 100,000 hunters in BC, if we all did that with all our neighbors, I think hunting would be a lot more accepted. I think a lot of us, we don't spend enough time talking to people in our own communities and helping them understand. I know I always try and take that opportunity, and if I ever manage to harvest anything, which had a bit of a dry spell here for a few years, you know, I know a lot of hunters do this, and I think we need to keep this up, is sharing that meat, right? And having that dialogue. And I know you guys, I've talked to you both, I know you guys do that. But I think hunters need to have that dialogue, keep it going, and we can't be in the shadows. We have to have that positive dialogue and be role models in our community, not only particularly for hunting, right? So I think it goes beyond just clicking on a screen and liking. That's definitely very imperative, and very, you know, maybe arguably more, but I think we equally as much, we have to be ambassadors in our own community for hunting and sharing that message all the time. So go ahead, John.
Yeah, I agree, Kyle. I think that's huge. I mean, I think even myself, I've changed, to be quite honest. I mean, you know, a few years ago, if I was taking a week off of hunting and somebody says, "Oh, where were you?" when I get back to work, like one of my patients, I had to say, "Oh, I was, you know, away for a week." Now I say, "Oh, I was moose hunting. I was, you know, sheep hunting, whatever." I really do put the effort into to let people know that I hunt. And, you know, again, when I'm successful, which, you know, this year is not a good example of a successful year, but, you know, I agree, Kyle, you know, having people, non-hunters, come into your house and feed them a really good meal of wild game, I don't think there's anything more compelling than that. And I think if, you know, if every hunter every year could pick some just non-hunter that they're acquaintance of and invite them over for a meal, that in itself is huge. I mean, if you've had a meal of, you know, an elk roast and all the fixings, and then somebody tries to tell you hunting's bad, it's pretty tough to convince somebody after that. Yeah. You know, especially when they know that, you know, this is a sustainable, ethical, you know, way to get protein. So yeah, I agree, Kyle.
It's interesting. I live downtown Victoria, and you'd think I'd be vilified for being a hunter, but it's interesting. I've got a number of friends that are vegans too, in particular, that were quite close, and people have had over to my place for dinner, and obviously they have not had the meat because they're meat eaters. But I've actually, one of the vegans told me that they would eat wild meat because they identify with that organic, that free range, that, you know, a lot of vegans don't eat meat on principle, right? And it's not about the animal so much. It's more about the commercial production of it, and that aspect, that's their concern with it, right? So actually, a lot of vegans tend to identify with One Campfire, I believe, and with hunting. And we've actually seen some pretty good success. Actually, we had that one vegan video that we did, and I think it does resonate with the vegans, and there is a connection with hunters and veganism, I guess, if you will, in the sense of just the organic, free range aspect of it, and non-commercial aspect, right? So
yeah,
well,
I've actually seen that in some of the Facebook groups we're in with One Campfire. There's a vegan and a meat eater group where they come together and have a conversation. And whenever somebody says they're a hunter, of course you're going to get the people jumping on and say they don't agree with it. The vast majority of vegans say, I'm okay with hunting because of exactly what Kyle said. It's not the mass produced, it's the true free range and ethical life that they live before they're on the table, right? So it's just sharing that part, because we can be blunt about it. What ended the grizzly hunt was that video we all know, where that bear is shot on the mountainside and it dies a horrible, horrible death. That should never happen. It should never have made it on social media. And that was the catalyst. So we need to be better ambassadors for what we do. As we say, there's so much more than the kill.
Yeah, and that goes back to, you know, individual hunters, you know, self-monitoring. I mean, it's a free country. You can put whatever you want on social media, but you better damn well decide whether it's worth it or not. You know, if you're putting something up there that shouldn't be viewed. I mean, I grew up in a ranch, you know, in northern Alberta, and we were very, you know, compassionate to our livestock and everything. But there's certain things that happen on a ranch that you don't want the whole world to see. It's just the way it is. Just like every profession, you know, there's things that, you know, they just happen. You know, they're not what you want it to happen, but they just happen. You don't have to share that with everybody, you know, and I'm not trying to be dishonest, but just, you know, some common sense goes a long way. I mean, I think that hunters need to sort of have that emotional maturity to realize that, you know, their actions have a bigger impact
You need to self-monitor.
You might think.
Yeah, you need
And
to
yeah,
self.
that video that precipitated the end of it.
Yeah, somebody else is monitoring for you if you're not doing it yourself.
Yeah.
In this day and age, you see things that are posted online 15 years ago coming back to bite someone, and it will happen, and it does happen.
Oh, totally. And I think that's we've got to if we want to control the narrative, we've got to do it. And one terrible video of something that none of us ever want to see can unravel so much positive work, and so much progress. And that's important for hunters to understand, is that we need to hunting needs to be rebranded. I think we've let the anti-hunting organizations brand us. And now we have to rebrand ourselves, and we're only going to be able to do that, if we approach this with a certain level of maturity and just being cognizant about what we're doing.
Good stuff for sure, Jonathan. So one other thing we asked what our membership can do. Jonathan mentioned the advocacy, reaching out to your MLA. We're going to amp that up over the next few months here. We actually started an engagement aspect of it. Going and meeting with your MLA on the wild sheep side regarding wild sheep issues, but really this, you could put on two hats when you go see your MLA with this. So we're actually looking for volunteers that will go in and meet with their MLA. We're putting that together now. We've got the bones of it together, and we actually have some people in place for that, but we really would like to have all 80 MLA ridings across BC represented, and really go in on a sort of biannual basis, so like every 6 months, and meet with your MLA. And this is the time we would really want to start, because we've got a fresh group of elected officials in that are here for the next 4 years. So if anyone's listening and wants to help us out with that, you can reach out to exec@wildsheepsociety.com. Just let us know you're interested, and we'll get you on the list. And we already have a handful of people that have already volunteered, but we'll be expanding that over the next few months. It's going to take some time to put it together, obviously, in all ridings, but that's the goal. So, okay. So parting thoughts. What are you guys' thoughts regarding One Campfire? Just hunting in general. What we can do as hunters, what we can do to support the One Campfire initiative. Let's just open that up.
Go ahead, Steve.
I think we covered it beautifully. Engage with us, like, share. If you've got a picture or a story that you want to tell, message the Facebook page. Let us know, hey, I've got something that I think might really, really work, because it's going to work with your support and with your help. Little things like that are going to go a long, long way. If you've got 500 friends on your friends list, and you share one of our posts, that's 500 extra people that are going to see it. And if they share, one of those people shares it, that's another 500. And our reach just expands and gets into the hearts and minds of people that you wouldn't expect. Because when I share it out of my friends list, there's 350 people that don't hunt, but they're seeing that message. I've got elected officials on my Facebook page that see that message. The hearts and minds change without you even realizing it. Little things like that go a long, long way.
And I'd add to that, Steve, if there's anybody who's watching this that wants to be a part of our I Hunt campaign, that would be great as well. If you're a white male, whatever, that's fine. We can use you, but particularly if you're a hunter that doesn't fit that normal stereotype, especially, you're female, you're may have ethnicity other than Caucasian. I hate to get into that, but the reality is that we want to show that. One of my really good hunting buddies was born in India. People maybe wouldn't think that this, accountant born in India is going to be a hunter, but he is, and we share these values. He connects to the land, and it's like, people need to see the diversity of hunters in the province and beyond. So if you feel like you'd be a good candidate for our I Hunt campaign, reach out. We definitely love to have you.
Everybody's got a story to tell, as we'd say, right?
Yeah.
If you got a gift for gab, put a pen to paper and send us your story. Adult onset hunters, we want to hear from you. If you're a former vegan, former vegetarian, and you're curious about hunting, we'd love to have a chat. there's so much opportunity there to tell each other's story. It's not just about hunting, it's about the connection we share to the landscape. You don't have to hunt to be a member of One Campfire.
Yeah, and if you have any great recipes from the wild game recipes or just foraged recipes, we'd love to have those as well. We're always looking for new and interesting recipes for our website.
Full credit always goes to the writer and the photographer.
Well, fantastic, gents. I just want to take a moment here to thank both of you. Jonathan, for your leadership. You stepped up this year as chair of the One Campfire Hunter Heritage Committee, and you've done a fantastic job of navigating us through this program. I see the drive and vision that you have, and great support from Colin Peters as well as our vice chair. Steve, the work you're doing on the social media end of things, managing that aspect, just hats off to you. I can just see, I get to see the backside of things, being on the Facebook page and Instagram, and all the messaging and all the work that's going into it, and those are relationships that are being built. And I'm really excited about the future of One Campfire. I think that, Jonathan, you said it perfectly. We're just getting started. We haven't even scratched the surface yet. And, all these things take time to build. And I think we are doing that. We're building the right reputation. We've got the right messaging. We're building incredible relationships. And we've got the support of some fantastic organizations and the membership of the Wild Sheep Society BC, all those things. We can't help but be successful. So hats off to your committee, JP, and just all the great work that's being done. So thank you guys both.
Our pleasure.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a wrap. Appreciate your time, gentlemen. And we should do this again. Let's touch base later on here. We'll circle back and get an update on the campaign. But this is going to go out to our membership. We really want our members to understand what we're doing. Like I said, a lot of the stuff they don't get to see. And this is a fantastic opportunity to catch up and see what's being done. And there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes before it hits Facebook or social media, and some pretty cool stuff ahead for us. So fantastic. Thanks, gents.
Thanks, Kyle.